Hi everyone, we're just going to wait 5 minutes just to see if Lorna arrives, then we'll get started.
I'll just wait for Lorna just to be seated. Well, thank you, everybody. I will declare this meeting open of the Infrastructure Services Committee held on 10th of August, and we're starting at 12:07 p.m. For the purpose of transacting the undermentioned business. This meeting will be audio recorded, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements. There are to be no other recordings of this meeting without the prior authorisation of the committee. So we move on to the agenda items. Application for attending media video link, that's all been attended to? Okay, that's good, thank you. Any apologies? Being no apologies, declaration of interest. Any declarations of interest? There being none, we'll move on to the business items.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I should just mention I have a standing one with respect to Moody Road and my living on Moody Road, and my husband is one of the community advocates.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Yeah, I thought that was a continuing one. So
okay, so can I just clarify so I don't need to mention that every time?
Oh. Well, I think technically you're supposed to, but I think
okay.
Put in a request, it's recorded, and I think if you just mentioned it, I'd be happy to accept that because it's a continuing thing. It's exactly, it hasn't changed from when you first put it in.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. All right, let's move on to page 1, ISC 8.1, Works Program, Infrastructure Services, Water and Sewer. Philip, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So before I get into it, the report in general, we're trialling a bit of a different format. So the water report and the works report are going to be more focused on, I guess, the operations, maintenance and our KPIs. And then all of the capital within works, water and major projects or strategic projects are going to be in the strategic and capital date. So it's a bit of a shuffle around. The same information's there, just in slightly different places. We just want to get all the capital in the one location rather than spread across 3 or 4 reports. And yeah, happy to receive feedback from the committee as we go along, because we can keep improving. Okay, so in water, we're obviously only got the stats for the first month of the year, but already we've had unfortunately, a number of sewage complaints with blocked and overflowing sewer. Our effluent recycled KPI is also off track because we still are in winter. We have wetter than average weather, so the demand for recycled effluent is very, very low. Outside of that, our drought management plan, we awarded that, us and Muswellbrook and Singleton awarded that to GHD. So that was awarded to them yesterday, actually. So they're on the case now, and we'll start that process. So when we went to market, we were looking at getting that project done by December 2021. Because there's a heavy consultation process with this and councillor input, and due to the change in local government elections, that completion date is normally around April 2022 now. Our original intention was also to get that sorted before heading into next summer. But the way things are looking at the moment, we won't have those stresses on our water supply systems for this summer at least. So we do have a bit more time up our sleeve in that regard as well. So the Aberdeen Hunter River Take improvements, we're getting pretty close to getting that tender ready to go out. So then when we can start with that work. The water main replacement tender has closed, is being assessed, and that'll go to the council meeting this month. And just the risk assessment for the recycled water component of the Castle Sewage was held on the 22nd of July with stakeholders from DPI, New South Wales Health, Cardno and Council. And just one other thing that isn't in the report, we put a request through to Health in regard to testing of our sewage for COVID. They came back to us this morning, and they're going to fund that testing for an initial period of 2 weeks. So on Monday, we'll take our first sample from the Scone STP, and we'll see where we go from there. So Health will fund that, and we'll start getting results from the sewage in Scone STP.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would just like to say I'm glad that's happening at last. It has taken a while, but it's good that it's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all from me.
Okay, just on the recycle, that's the Castle Sewage Centre. So really, it's only going to be in the larger centres. There won't be in the smaller towns at this stage for that those testings until the government, till there is funding for the government to take those other smaller areas on. Is that right? So
the feedback that we got from Health was that they have a certain capacity in what they can process. So at the moment, it's just Scone. Right. You obviously get diminishing returns as you go to smaller systems. You're sampling less of the population. Okay. So just Scone for now. Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments regarding that report? Okay, I'll call for a mover and a seconder, please. Seconded. Councillor
Second.
Abbott. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Those against, the ayes have it. Thank you. I'd like to turn over now to page 5, ISC 8.2, Works Program Infrastructure Services. Sam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. As you can see, and as Phil's mentioned, the format has changed somewhat. So basically, we've got our KPIs there. I guess I just put it out to the committee if anybody wants to make comment on that. I'll try to respond. Beyond that, we'll touch on the capital works program, and then we've got the two attachments, the grading schedule and the resheeting program. So if anybody would like any further information, I'm happy.
Yes, yes, thank you, Sam. I think this is good. It will take me a little while to get used to it, but I think it is a good way of presenting the information. And this is probably, through you, Mr. Chair, a question for the General Manager. Would we consider doing this across everything? Like, as I've mentioned before, getting a dashboard with some key things so when councillors can go on, we can be abreast of everything that's happening right at the moment. But I do like the change in format. I'm not quite across it yet, but I do like it.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Abbott, this is probably the first foray into this. This is probably the area I thought was the most important to get some of the KPIs publicly transparent and in front of the councillors on a monthly basis. It also holds myself and the council staff accountable. This is what we've committed to the community and yourselves, and we can obviously take action and intervene on anything that's getting off track early rather than waiting till we're several months into the financial year. So I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad you see the benefit of it. I'd like to explore this in other forums and some of the other committee meetings. I think we've got opportunity to do this in others. We do provide these KPIs to councillors on a quarterly basis through the reporting system, but I think by putting it into the committee meetings, you get the opportunity to actually ask the staff about particular projects or programs that we've got. So I think it adds a little bit of, interaction between councillors and staff during these committee meetings, and I'm hoping this keeps us on track in the coming year. We'll probably take other councillors' comments, and if we can improve on this one and include it in other meetings for other committee meetings, more than happy to do so.
Thank you. So just back to my question through you, Mr. Chair, with respect to a dashboard like other councils have, because I know when I did the governance training, that was something the facilitator really recommended, that all councils did have a dashboard where information was right at our fingertips at any time that we logged on.
Yeah, so I love the idea of a dashboard too. We do have software that we use within this organisation to track our KPIs. Unfortunately, whilst at the surface it looks like you can click on a button and pull up all the information you want, behind the scenes there's a lot of data collection that has to go in. So in reality, a lot of this data just in this form alone, so if you're looking at the screen now, looking at the local roads that have been inspected, a lot of that's being collected on paper documents at the moment. Those paper documents are brought into the office. Administrative staff convert that information from those paper documents onto spreadsheets, and then it goes into our database system. So there's a lot of still manual handling, unfortunately. Ideally, we'd like to have a system that the staff could enter the data into in the field. It would capture how much road they've inspected on a daily basis. It would be a single data entry, not multiple handling. It would be more efficient, and you'd have that data quicker. What you're looking at here is, as I say, a culmination of pulling lots of different data streams together into one. So I love the idea that you're suggesting, and we've got it in some aspects, but not across the board. So there's still a bit of work to be done. As I say, this is probably the first step towards that. If it is something that councillors like, we'll continue to work towards getting it into a presentable format that you can access at any time.
Thank you, Greg. Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, I just can't see how much gravel has been put on these roads when they've been graded. Is there any record of any amount of gravel patching that's gone on, or I'm not reading this correctly?
No, we don't. We don't have it as a KPI, the amount of gravel that we've put on for spot patching.
Right.
But I can can get
When-
that data if you need it.
When would that be available? Would it be available sort of a month after the road is completed or something, or when could that be obtained?
Yeah, it'd be at the end of the month, or so I determine that by the gravel quantity put on the road that we've booked out to it. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of work to it, but I can find that
Right,
information out.
okay. I'm just concerned that when a road is inspected, who makes the decision? Because there's some sections that badly need gravel patching. We do have some funds that if we're just going to go over as we have done in previous years, we won't be patching those things to improve them. Who makes that decision?
So it'll be the works coordinator.
Right.
And myself will make that decision.
Right.
So there's a couple of things that you need to consider there. Well, the available budget, firstly.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've got some additional funds, but that won't go far if we just put gravel on every single road that we maintenance grade. So we've got to monitor that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the condition of the road itself as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, look, I accept that. However, we need to put some gravel on some patches. We can't just keep doing what we've been doing. That's my premise, is the fact that sometimes, you can take Dales Creek, there's some of that section needed gravel. You can't do all of it, and they're not expecting that, and I'm certainly not expecting it. But some of that road needed some gravel patching, not complete resheeting. Can't happen. So how do we overcome that? Otherwise, we're just going to continue down this same line.
So we'll monitor that road by road,
Right.
and then monitor it against the budget again.
Right.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to service every road to the level that we want it.
Now,
There'll have to be
yeah.
some issues where it will be just a maintenance grade.
Yeah. No, I think perhaps you're misunderstanding me. There are some sections on Dales Creek that wanted a couple of loads of gravel. You can't do all of them, but we've got to start putting some gravel on these bad sections. So that's what I'm asking.
Well, we've got our resheeting program.
Right.
So we've identified areas that require patching now.
Yeah.
We've actually gone to the point where we've got our program for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we've identified areas that need work. Beyond that, if they do need a spot patching here and there, we'll accommodate it when we can and have available budget.
Yeah, okay. Okay, as long as we get some on. Okay, look, anyway, that will then, that will come to light when we see how much gravel has been put on some of the roads. It was, yes. Okay. All right. Any further questions or comments on that report?
Chair, if I could just make a short comment. We've had a couple of requests to vary the grading and the resheeting program already. As General Manager, I've probably pushed back a little bit on this at this stage because I believe that this organisation only adopted this grading schedule in July. If we start moving the program around based on individual requests, we do lose efficiency each and every time we make a change to this program. And I guess it's putting staff in an awkward position where we've put out a published program and we're doing, I guess, short-term changes. My comment has been to some of the ones that have made requests that let's stick this out for at least 6 months. Let's make sure that the program is being achieved. We know that not every road is going to get done in the first 6 months, but we've got a program now. We've put the $2 million into the program. We've adopted the program. Let's push forward and stick to the program as best we can. Having said all that, at the end of the day, if this committee chooses to move the program around and make adjustments, they've got that power and they can do so. But my advice is if we can stick to the program as best as possible without making changes, that would be my and the staff's preference. So I can see staff have just brought up the grading program on page 13 now. And you can see we've met the program in the first month, and we're actually a little bit ahead. Some of those roads were done a little bit ahead of schedule. And hopefully, if we do get a little bit of float in our program and we can get ahead of our program, then that gives us some opportunity to bring some of those other worse roads forward. But at this stage, I'd be reluctant to agree or suggest that we start moving the program around too much now.
Yes, I thank you, Mr. GM. I just hope that it's just not going to go down the same line as just calling it a maintenance grade when the bad patches are not attended to. Because at the end, any gravel putting on a road has to be put on there when they're grading, not afterwards. So we can't wait until the road's all graded and it's, oh, we should have had a load of gravel there. It's not in any ways a reshooting. I agree we need to stick to that program, but there are patches that just need attention. We keep doing this. We are not, I don't believe we're achieving what we should be doing.
Mr. Chair, you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Councillor Campbell. Look, I agree with the General Manager. I mean, we've got a program there. Maybe I need to speak about this more on radio. And $2 million is going to be spent on certainly going to be doing some roads. Some roads are going to miss out, but I think the public are just going to have to give us a few months to settle this down. And unless it's a very concerned of danger or something, I think I go along with the GM.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question, please, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Just in relation to what's mapped out in the papers, if we go back into a drought and we have water restrictions again, will these be revised? Because obviously we need water when we're doing the roads.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, that's correct. If we come into a drought situation, obviously, yeah, we're going to have to review our program.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
All right. Do we have any further comments? Concerns? All right. Do we have a mover and a seconder?
Moved.
Seconded. All right. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against,
Aye.
Ayes have it. I see. ISC 8.3, page 19. Philip, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the moment, we've got, I guess, a summary of year-to-date works complete, but the way that it works in terms of when this report's prepared, it's really just showing the end-of-year figures for last year, and then next month you'll have the figures from July, etc. There's now 2 attachments to this report. So one is the combined capital works from all areas with a progress update, budget, estimated completion date. I guess probably the easiest thing is if I just give you a bit of an overview of what the various columns mean, and then we can just go through page by page, and if people have questions, they can ask them.
Starting on page 25, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay, page 25.
So first bunch of columns are fairly self-explanatory. The project value and the funding amount shows sort of where the funding has come from, and some of these projects, they're grant funded, some are from multiple grants, a combination of grants and council funding, so that should be in that column. The target completion date is the original target date. So even though we might have projects that have a green in their schedule, there's the delay that's been amended. Even if we've amended the grant requirements, if funding have to be spent by a certain date, we'll still show the original date in that column. The estimated completed date is the project manager's best estimate as to when it'll actually get finished in reality. Cost to date is fairly self-explanatory. Budget and schedule, we've got the indicators, traffic light indicators of green, amber, red. Essentially green is okay, amber is there could be an issue or there's an issue developing. Red is there's a problem that needs some action taken to rectify. There shouldn't be, I apologise if there's any missing, there shouldn't be any ambers or reds that don't have comments attached. So the thinking there is that we at least need the project manager to provide commentary where there's an amber or a red. And then activities for the next 3 months is also fairly self-explanatory. So
Okay.
if you just want to take us through page by page. And I guess
We'll just do it
take
quickly by
questions as they
page by
come up.
page so we know where we're up to. So any comments or questions on page 25? Okay, if not, turn over to page 26. Any questions or comments there? Just let, on point 15, let councillors know to discuss the signage with Councillor Campbell. Well, now, that was discussed last night and it was decided on 10 information signs to go up on the main street. So that is progressing. It's just letting people know what's been happening there. Just down to point 17, you speak about the accessible ramp in the activities next 3 months. Accessible ramp, not in the original playground fencing. I'm just not sure what that entails. And the fencing was there. There was fencing around that, didn't we discuss that?
Through the chair, correct. There is fencing going around the new playground. Yes, and the accessibility ramp is. It wasn't in the original scope of works. However, we see that it's required. So it actually goes from the side of the hall down to a path to the toilet blocks.
Right, yeah. Oh,
yeah. So previously there was just steps there.
Yes,
so,
I know.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you for filling me in on that. That's good. That'll be very well received too. Okay, anything further on page 26? Turn to page 27.
Chair, could I just ask that somebody scrolls the page down to page 27 on the display screen? Thanks. Thank you.
Sam, could I ask you on MR 62, which would be perhaps 22. I have brought this up before. I just noticed that there are flags and various signs on some of the trees and the side there. On one of those corners and Peak Hill, is that going to be taken off or is it just going to try and widen that section?
So the bunting or the night line that we call it indicates the boundary, the extent of works.
Right.
And if there is marks on the trees, it could be for two reasons. They're either to be removed or they'll stay. So as far as the alignment goes, we're trying to correct it where we can.
Right. Okay.
Opening up a line of sight.
Yeah, just as you go over that brow and then you make a right-hand turn, that's coming from Merriwar to, it's quite a blind, sharp sort of a corner.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, look, thank you for that. And also, I am mindful too of the amount of money that we've got to do that job, which will probably restrict us in exactly how far we can make it a highway. All right, anything further on that page? If not, we'll turn over to page 28, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The Barrington Tops Road, item number 30. So I see that it needs additional funding. So how is that tracking?
Through
Through the chair, council put in an application under the third round of fixing local roads for the balance, as well as the other sections of Barrington Forest Road. It's anticipated to hear back from them around September, October, I believe.
Thank you. And so what is, through you, Mr. Chair, what's the estimated reopening time for that road, for the Barrington Tops Road?
Through the chair, if you're talking about the collapsed section,
Yep.
on the Gloucester side, I don't know if we got a firm date. I believe their schedule was to start works around November. I think anything beyond that is fairly broad. I don't think we have it, unless you know anything further, Greg, but I believe works were starting November to be completed over summer.
But I want to start just before December period. They were giving us a conservative estimate of mid next year, say June, July 2022, but they thought if they got a good run at it, they might finish that earlier, but they weren't willing to compare lock down a date any earlier than June next year.
And thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair. So we are short of money though for the proposed upgrade of the road. Is that right? I'm not now talking about the landslide area. So this is all in the Upper Huntershire, this part, because the landslide area is actually in the Gloucestershire, isn't it? Or whatever their shire is called. Correct.
This is the section, or the first part of the section that goes up from Moonambrook Road to the Dingo Gate.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And so we can't actually proceed at the moment.
We can proceed. These works aren't dependent on the other rectification works that are happening in the forestries section.
Are they not?
That'll be rectified well and truly before.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm just a little bit confused. The money for the first and second stages of the Moonambrook and Barrington Road are funded. Is that correct? And we're waiting on the third stage to be funded.
Through the chair, currently Moonambrook is fully funded.
Yes.
Forest Stage 1, there's that 4.7 million funded, but to complete that stage, we need another further 2.1, which we put in that application in for fixing country roads, fixing local roads rather. And then we've also put in 2 further applications for fixing local roads for the other 2 stages to complete Barrington Forest as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Any further questions on page 28? I have one here on page 32 again, back on are we any closer to getting the final design for that Castor sewerage? It's just every month seems to go on and on and on, and you know, it cost us 550,000 rather, not million. But yeah.
Through the chair, so we are in the very final stages of the detailed design component. We've got project manager Nalakshi online. I don't know, do you have a further update on an actual date from Cardno, Nalakshi?
Through chair, it's Cardno should finish by end of August their submission. Probably will not complete a document, but they will submit the draft detailed design report by end of August. Then we review and we put our comments, and yeah, once we finish the detailed design, then maybe we have to make a decision looking at the cost estimate, what we just how do we progress with the construction stage.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'd like to move on to page 29, please. Any comments or questions on that?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I have a question on the cashless sewerage or system. Is it likely this won't progress? Is it likely that it may not happen?
Through the chair, I wouldn't want to say likely or unlikely, but definitely there is a a funding hurdle that we need to overcome before we can progress further.
So then will it be going back to septic tanks or other, I mean, when do we sort of draw a line under this? Or what's the plan?
So through the chair, that'll be something for council to, I guess, decide when we bring the relevant information back to council in its own report. If we don't progress, then yes, we still have other environmental and health concerns there that we need to deal with.
Yes, because I'm aware this has been an issue since before I became a councillor, because when I was campaigning 5 years ago, this was an issue. So it's been a long time. And I'm guessing the uncertainty must be very troubling.
Correct.
Thank you. In my comments, thank you.
Indeed, it has been going a long time, and it is an issue up there too. And I'm wondering just whether or not that as soon as we get this the cost of the works, that we just have to go straight to the government, because that's really where we've got to go. But they won't listen to us until we've got the works costed and say this is the final design and this is where it's going to go. So the sooner that comes out, which you're suggesting is probably end of August, we'll probably go up to the September council meeting. I think I agree. We need to progress it. It's just disgraceful the way in which it's gone. And we spent $550,000 on them, and we still haven't got a design. Anyway, let's move over to page 29, please. Any questions or comments on page 29? Pretty straightforward. Move over to page.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to ask about the treatment plant, the water treatment plant in Scone at 38. I understand there was a fire the other day. Did that actually make the treatment plant, or people out where I live seem to think it had? So I just thought I might just check. No?
The chair, I don't believe
Okay.
any impacts on infrastructure from fires. No.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's turn over to page 30, please. Any questions or comments? We could deal with page 31 too on those in conjunction with page 30. Okay. Any further questions or comments on that report? If not, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Also move from the chair. Are there any dissension? Any comments? If not, all those in favour, please say aye. Those against, I think the ayes have it. Okay, we turn over now to ISC 8.4, MR 358, Willow Tree Road upgrade. Gavin, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll just go through a brief update of what's happened in the last month and what's in the report. So the PCG requested further information regarding the costs and risks and ongoing maintenance to feed into a report and risk matrix before selecting a preferred option. That's due in by the end of this week for the next PCG, which is on Monday. Also in line with the report that went to the last council meeting in July, the PCG also confirmed the remedial earthwork, the remedial earthworks and excavations work should be completed. At the moment, council has engaged a contractor to perform those excavation and remedial works, and he's planning to commence works once he's finished some other works on the 30th of August, the week of the 30th of August. Council staff will undertake some of the preliminary work, such as guardrail removal, erosion and sediment controls, and some set-up works to make sure everything's all right for him to commence. Douglas Partners are also reviewing the geotechnical scope of works for further investigation. And once that's received, we will commence or engage Douglas Partners to undertake that work as well.
Yeah, I mean, just before, like I just asked a question earlier, now the contractor that's been engaged, is it ensured that the equipment that he's using is large enough and adequate enough to do the job? Because We don't want to have a small excavator or whatever the case may be when you should have been having a much bigger one from the start. That seemed to be a difficulty before. So are you sure that the machines that have been contracted are large enough to handle what they have to do?
Yes, through the chair, the consultant or contractor we've engaged, he's more than happy that his machine will do that work. And the added benefit at the moment is that all that work is the loose fill that's already been replaced. So it's not so much digging out existing or natural materials or rock faces. It's just removing the uncompacted or placed fill that's already been put there.
So who's going to oversee whether the machine is actually doing the job that it should be doing?
Council will have myself or another supervisor out on site, as well as a geotechnical engineer as well. So we'll be able to gauge within the first few days to make sure that he's achieving what he said he's going to achieve as well.
I see. Yeah, I think that's the oversight is very important. Thank you.
That's right. The only other thing I've got here, we met with the the expression of interest for the construction tender on the 29th of July. That was very forthcoming. They provided a lot of information for us and submitting documents for the review of the concept designs, and that'll feed into the matrix and report for the project control group to determine the preferred preferred option to enter detailed design as well.
Okay, and when is that? Did you say that that work is going to start or has started?
Through the chair, the earthworks will start on the week of the 30th of August. So I think 2 weeks time.
End of August. Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just, with respect to the section headed emerging issues and the fill experiencing continued movement, what's happening there?
Through the chair, so essentially that section is roughly 2200 to 2400. That area is continuing to slide down the hill. So as it stands, I was there last Wednesday. Essentially the entire road is starting to move down the hill. So there's where you had the road previously, you've got up to a foot or 300 or 400 mil drop, and you can't physically drive across or through the road anymore. So, and that's continuing to move down that slope towards the gully.
So, so all the roadworks that we're planning, that's one of the first things we're doing, is it? Or, I mean, how does that impact neighbours or properties, landholders and their properties? Is that on people's property?
Through the chair, so the works that we're proposing will essentially remove most, if not all, of that material.
Yep.
And then the other option, not the other option, the other concern you raised about the property owner, we've been in close contact with the property owner affected, and he's quite comfortable with how we're proceeding at the moment. If anything changes, he'll be the first to know.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do we have any questions or comments on that report? I'd just like to say thank you to those the staff that have been involved in this. It's been an ongoing thing, but I think as long as we're on top of it now, I think that it will help us considerably in our progression of getting this road fixed. So anything else or any further comments or questions? If not, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please, of ISC 8.4. I'll also move it again if someone else wants to move it. All right. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, I think the ayes have it. Thank you. If we now turn over to page 39, answer to questions. I'll just take them in order. The Councillor Campbell to start off with. I'll turn over the page to page 40.5. Do we have any information about leakages at the swimming pools? Can you upgrade me a little more on that?
Yeah.
Sam?
Through the chair. So we're still investigating. With our current investigation to date, we found a leaking water main, which is contributed to the water at Whitney's Creek. We've also identified some subsoil drainage going into that stormwater pipe as well.
Right.
So that's, yeah, that's coming out at Whitney's Creek. The pool itself, I've got a contractor giving me a quote currently to do some repairs there. So once I receive that quote, we'll either engage or seek additional quotes
Okay, are we sure that that's actually coming out of the pool, or is it coming out of somewhere else? Or is it from a main?
Well, that's what we're currently
That's your fine,
investigating.
okay.
I think it'll be a combination of all three.
Okay.
Yes, we know that there is some water coming out of the pool, but I don't believe it's to the extent that people have suggested that it is. There is possibly 2 or 3 other sources that are flowing into that stormwater pipe as well.
Yeah, that brings you to the question too, that I did read those particular figures, and I also questioned them too, and I don't believe that they are correct. What about the Murrundi pool? I think it was leaking too, was it? Or
no, we've got a few issues at the Scone pool, which we're also investigating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the Murrundi one?
The Murrundi pool, from what I understand, doesn't have any major leaks anyway. All the pools leak to some extent,
right.
And that's just a given with the age that they are.
Okay, thank you. And also point 10 and point 11, you can't be everywhere at every time. Have you been able to get up and inspect those problems up there on that road, or is it?
Yeah, through the chair, we have inspected the Green Creek Bridge. There is some scouring where we have put in our program to do some remediation works there. This Crows Bridge, we're not sure where that is.
Okay.
We spoke to local property owners, and there's nothing up that way that they refer to as that bridge. So, yeah.
Okay, perhaps a question to the General Manager. Some of the contributions that were coming in, have we got an update on those? I think I did refer them to the finance. Maybe I should refer them to the finance for the, I think it was Stoneco that was going to finance, put in not a co-contribution, I think it was part of his contract. Do you know whether those monies have been received?
Look, I'd have to get back to you, Councillor. I think that question was asked of the finance people in the Corporate Services Committee meeting, and I think they're looking at a response to that, but I don't have anything at hand, sorry.
I'm happy with that. I'm only just referring to you, Mr. Chair. Point 12 now, with the talking about the seal on Bow Street seal, is that just the actual crossing, or is it the whole street?
Through the chair, it's a whole street. We put it in the program this year to be sealed.
To whole of the street, which would go up to, what was it, McCartney Street, I think?
Yeah, we'd actually go around McCartney Street and link it back up with Vinegar Street. Oh, well, that is
yes,
McCartney
I know what you
Street.
mean.
Yeah.
It's an L shape, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's very good. Thank you. Councillor Driscoll, you happy with your reply there? Oh, Councillor Collison. Councillor Driscoll.
Yeah, that should be right.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, Councillor Collison, are you happy with your responses there to your questions?
Happy, thank you.
Okay. Well, Councillor Fisher's not here. Anyway, I think that we've all. How far are we down? What has happened with the Allen Bridge? It's been inspected. Is it anything further update from what's here?
Through the chair, we had the inspection done we had some issues with COVID getting the actual structural engineers to attend the site, so we had to get a test and then he had 3 days to come down and get back. We're expecting that report tomorrow, essentially, and then we'll write a report. It'll either go straight to council the next infrastructure meeting.
Okay. We haven't gone through this capital works program upgrade either, which I omitted to put in, which would have been in ISC 8.2, I guess.
Mr. Chair, if I can just make a comment on that.
Yes.
Jude, one of the things with the changes to the reporting was whether or not this council wanted to go through that larger capital work, or this committee wanted to go through that larger capital works list each month or not. The difficulty with timing is that you'll only ever get this larger capital works listing on the morning of the actual committee meeting. So it doesn't give committee members any time to look at it in advance. A number of options that I guess are open to us is, the first thing is we've tried to give you a much more comprehensive report in 8.3 that actually highlights the large projects and gives you more detail in that report. So you may not feel that you need to go through the capital works listing at all with that. However, if you do want to go through it, the options available to you are continue to receive this report on the morning, which doesn't give you opportunity to look at it in advance, or we can provide you a month-old version with the agenda papers, but noting that the figures won't be the most recent figures because they'll be a month old. We also looked at whether or not we should push this meeting back a week to allow you to get the updated capital works program with the agenda papers. Now, all of these options are open. It's up to the committee, I guess, as to what they want. We had hoped that by providing more detail on 8.3, it might negate the need to try and get this report to you on the day, but it's up to the committee and how they want to operate.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, could I suggest that we push this meeting back a week so that we can get it with the business papers?
We can. One of the implications of doing that, Councillor, is that we generally locate this on the same day as the D&E committee. So it would mean that we'd move the D&E committee back probably at the same time, because some councillors travel over for both, and it would reduce the travel times for those. So there's some of the things we can consider, but we can accommodate that if that's something the committee wants. Sorry, I jumped in just as the Mayor was about to speak, I think.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I'd be quite happy to leave it as is. I think the other program you've got up and running is by far the best. And I think if we got this on the morning of the infrastructure meeting, it doesn't take that long to run through that spreadsheet. So I'd be quite happy to leave it as is and give it another trial.
Councillor Driscoll, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm a bit like Morris, but
Hey, Lorna, turn your phone on. Or your microphone. Good on you. We need to hear you.
Yeah, I think I'll be like the Mayor to let it go another time and see how we go.
We haven't got the council burns on it, is it? Well, look, I think that the new way, some of the most important things that we have, I think, has been changed to the way in which the reporting of the gradings and what's happening in the Shire. I think that takes the place, but I'm keen to see this come in as it is, even if it's then, because then you can, if you want to, you can check it back over. But I just think it's very good to see this whole, yeah, it is detailed, but it hasn't taken us that long to go through them. And I would prefer to see it like this, so that we can go through it and then we can discard it afterwards. But yeah, to just keep picking out highlights, I'm just a bit concerned about that. Whereas the new format that's been given to us of our KPIs and what we're doing there, I think that gives us a lot of information, and then we can, even if this is old. So I'm happy to leave it as it is. What do you think about the new way of doing the works program? Are we happy to embrace the new system that Greg has compiled for us? Are we all happy with that?
Yes, I like the way, through you, Mr. Chair, I like the way it was presented today, but I still would like to see it's pushed back a week, and I take the General Manager's point that we'd have to do the D&E at the same time, because because obviously you travel a long way, as does Councillor Collison. So I can't see why we wouldn't push this back a week. And I like the new format.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd still like to, we trial this another month. I don't think it's that big a drama. I mean, the Capital Works program, give yourself half an hour to rip through that. It's not that long. And I think we'd be very game to move the D&E meeting without number one putting that through that committee. So I'd be recommending we leave it, trial this next month, and then come back and discuss it again.
All right. Mr. GM, I'll ask for your assistance here. Should that go on a motion or just be noted?
I think you can just note it. Look, we'll, from a staff point of view, we'll support whatever the committee wants. What I'm hearing is that you want to go at least another month running it on the same schedule as we are currently. We will continue to provide the updated reports to you in the new format, unless you've got other commentary to make. We'll continue to give you the broader Capital Works spreadsheet, but as long as you continue to understand, it'll only be provided to you on the morning, because we're actually filling in the last of the month's details, pretty much leading right up to this meeting. And, you know, as I say, as the Mayor pointed out, if you want to take half an hour to go through that, that's fine.
Thank you. I also mentioned to our staff that the font for the grading program, etc., is meant for much younger people than I, and so if that could be enlarged a little so that it is a little easier to read, I'd be very grateful for that. So look, I think if we note that, thank you, Councillor Abbott, for your comments on that, and they're noted. But I think if we just leave it as it is at this stage, I do believe that the new form that is taken, that you've exercised, Greg, is good, because that really answers many of the questions that councillors have as to where we are in a much more timely manner. So I'm very supportive of that. Okay, we move on then. Do we have any councillor questions?
Yes.
Councillor Abbott, do you have any councillor questions?
Yes, I do. Just with respect to the salty soils that we have in Scone, do we have any further information on the area around the high school and the nursing home and other parts of Scone? Because we had a presentation a few years ago, and it sounds like it is serious in other parts. So I was just wondering if councillors are likely to have a presentation at some point, how things are tracking with the sodic soils.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll take that question on notice. It's probably for the D&E committee. It's an environmental matter that the Director of Environmental and Community Services has been dealing with. I know they've done some extensive salt-affected soil mapping, but I can talk to Matt about bringing a report probably back through the D&E committee, though. Okay,
thank you. And then also, with respect to the Warbirds Museum, and I have been told, and I'm not sure, I would just like clarification, that the beam over the door sagged when it was removed by 100 millimeters. Can I have any further information on that, please?
Through the chair, Chris, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yes, through the chair. Yes, this is correct. When the beam, the lattice beam that spans what will be the hangar door, which is 48 metres long, it did sag, about that 100 millimetres. So when it was realised, some big props were put underneath the door to hold, like the structure, to hold it up, just so that it wasn't sagging anymore, and just as a temporary measure. And the design engineer was, I guess they went back to Kingston, went back to the design engineer for the shed, which is a different company that they'd subcontracted. And the design engineer came up with a way of, like, he admitted that, yes, that was an error in his calculations, and he's come up with a design to strengthen the columns that are to the outside of the doors, like further along that front wall there, so that they will be stiffened up, so they will prevent the sagging from happening.
So, and will that all be through you, Mr. Chair? Will that all be done at the builders, the constructioners, or whatever you call them, as cost? That will be their, that's their error then?
Through the chair, yes. Zero cost to council on that. That's all being borne by the contractor.
Right, thank you. And also, I was just wondering how, if this, is this the right place to ask about the airport maintenance costs, or do they come back, does that sum come back to the Corporate Services Committee? I was just wondering how they're tracking along, how the costs at the airport are tracking along with our expectations of monies that we're to make.
So I'll probably take that one on board. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Abbott, about the maintenance costs. It typically falls under the corporate services area, so we would normally report that in the corporate services meeting. Are you talking about just the general day-to-day maintenance of the airport operations?
Yes, and also I've been told that the cameras that have been installed, when that's quite costly to move them, and that they get moved again. I'm not entirely sure what this means, but I believe there are cameras there and that there's a cost to moving them.
I'm not aware of.
No, Chris would, I mean, Mr. Agosto would probably know.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. And that's part of the cost of the project. They had to be moved originally to a temporary location, but part of the project, the funded project, is to bring them back onto the main hangar building once the construction is complete. And yeah, there will be some antenna poles in place for those so that they can be relocated onto those.
Thank you. And my last question was, I understand that sewage testing is to be done, which is good news. But I wondered if it would be possible next time, Mr. GM, before you go on the radio, if councillors could be told about that. Because it is something I've been asking about for a while, and I heard on the grapevine. So if that would be possible for councillors to be made aware of that beforehand next time. Thank you.
Yeah, just through the chair to Councillor Abbott again. I was on the radio at 7:30 this morning with ABC. We actually got notified of the sewage testing from Department of Health at 22:07 this morning. So I apologise. I didn't get an email out to councillors in advance of that. I got a quick text message off to the mayor to let him know that that was the direction we're going. But my apologies for not getting something done in that 30 or 40 minute break. Thanks.
Thank you. They're all my questions. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Look, we all have the capital works expenditure, which we haven't gone through. Does the committee want to go through that? Because really I should open ISC 8.3 again. So do we want to go through that briefly now?
We probably should. If that's to be the procedure.
Given to us this morning, so we're giving to us this afternoon. So look, we all have a copy. Let's turn over to page 2, ISC, not ISC, line number 1, down to 59. I've always found that going through this is there are many questions that we have and probably will be asked for us outside are all detailed here. We can get the answers to it very, very quickly. or they're taken on notice. So I'm fairly keen to keep this going. Okay, line number 1 to line number 59. Do we have any questions or comments?
No.
If not, we shall turn over to page 3, 60 to 118. Okay, we'll turn over, no comments on that. Turn over to page 4, 119 to 175. I think it's very good that many of these projects have been accounted for and continuing and completed rather. Okay. Turn over to page 5 then, 176 to 234. Okay, no comments on that. On to page 6. Line items 235 to 293. I think many of these things have been discussed too, which is good. Okay, let's turn over to page 7 then. Line item 294 to 349. Okay, if not, we'll turn over to page 8, our last page, line items 350 to 371. No comments on that. I guess they should be part of ISC 8.3. Am I right, Mr. GM?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, who moved and seconded those?
I can't remember.
Ron and Lorna.
Okay, are we happy to include those, Lorna? Okay. Well, they will be included in our, is there any dissension to that? No, okay, then all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, so they will be included. I apologise for overlooking that. However, anyway, the matter's been attended to. Any other further questions or comments that we need? General business, it's not general business, but questions, I think we've all had that. Otherwise, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, hang on. Yeah, I've got a couple of quick questions.
Yes. Did I cut you out, Mr. Mayor?
Firstly,
apologise.
Yeah, you did, but that doesn't matter. Sam, a question for you. The gravel testing at Mitchell's Pit for Moon Ann, number 1, have you got that, and has the results come back for the work on Moon Ann Brook?
Through the chair, yes, we have received those results. However, we're doing further testing. We're doing some stabilisation trials to see whether we can strengthen the pavement or strengthen the material.
Very good, thank you. And just one more, Mr. Chair. The cattle grids, and especially out around Broadboy, Dartbrook, this was brought to their attention 12 months ago. The inspections and the condition of them, can we start to go around them again?
Through the chair, yeah. Yes, we can. What we've been doing recently is just undertaking them on request. But if the committee would like us to do another round of inspections, we can do that.
Well, this main one was a fair while back. It's Broadboy up at Dartbrook Road up in that area. So can we have them inspected, please, if available?
yes, we can go out and re-inspect those because, like you say, if it was 12 months ago, I would imagine the condition of the grids has probably deteriorated a little bit in that period.
Yep. Thank you. That's all for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a question, Lorna? Turn your phone on, please.
No, I just said that Dartpool Bridge is getting very rockety, rickety on the bottom when you go across it.
Okay, I'll take that one on notice
Yeah.
and do an inspection.
Okay. Any other further questions? It's been a bit. All right. Look, are you happy if we? Yes.
We need a move and second for
8.5. 8.5. Okay. Do we note those, or do we, Mayor? Mr. Chairman? Do we? It's the chairman. I'm the chairman. Do we receive and note? Okay. Well, we'll put it in a motion. I'm quite happy with that. Mover and a second. The answer to councillor's questions have been noted and
moved.
Okay. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, I think the aye. Okay. The third attempt. Oh, that's good. Thank you so much, and I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you. Bye.
What's your complaint? Huh?
I did the fence line from the treatment plants. But in the treatment plant, somebody has to do it from you guys on the other side.
Inside. Okay.
Yeah. Just it's very bad. I don't think I did it last year either.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they are fighting and going home.
Yeah. But Haley was here and there a little bit sitting today, so he had time enough, I think.
Yeah, he has time enough.
Because he's driving the spray.